All right. Well, let's just kind of run through some scores. Thursday night, Texas Tech beat TCU 35-28. Duke beat Wake Forest 24-21. Friday night, Syracuse lost to Boston College 17-10. We get into Saturday. Let's just start there at the noon window. Clemson beats Notre Dame 31-23. You mentioned this was one of many games you were paying attention to. What were your takeaways, even though you maybe didn't get quite as much on it as I did?
Right. So yeah, I mean, it was one of four. I had it in a quad box. There's only so
Right.
much, so much you can do there. It was right there with Texas and Kansas State as two really important, like not playoff implication games, but New Year's Six implication games
Right.
with Notre Dame's case. But I was impressed with Clemson. How could you not be? They threw for 109 yards. Like they were not throwing the ball all over the field. Cade Klubnik he had a 50% completion percentage. It was 13 of 26 for 109.
Yeah.
And he was probably the better quarterback of the two on Saturday. Hate to be that way. Yeah. Sorry. Hate that for you.
Yeah.
They ran the ball really well. They just gave the ball to Phil Maffa pretty much. Like that was kind of their only strategy on offense. And like Clemson has talent. I think the news of Clemson's collapse has maybe been a bit premature. Um, they Clemson's a physical team. Like they have good defensive linemen. Like they get after the passer. They were very disruptive in the bits that I would watch. Their defense I thought was disruptive. So
Yeah.
yeah, I thought I Clemson's a tough out. Clemson's still a hard team to beat.
If it tells you anything about the way the game was going, Notre Dame had like 5 possessions in the second half where
Yes.
they had a chance to tie the game, and I never felt like they were going to tie the game. Like it just
Right.
their offense is completely broken right now. At least
Yeah.
on the road, it is for some reason, which it
Yeah.
kind of is too at home. They've just had some. They've had some games. They had the last 2 games they played before the Clemson game were both at home. They forced 5 turnovers in both of those games, and
Right.
like I mentioned on last week's pod, I still didn't feel like Notre Dame's offense was fixed, even though they scored 58 points against Pitt last week.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it was not fixed. Throwing a few things out there in the second half, Notre Dame averaged 1.9 yards per play. Um,
Not
since
getting
the
it done.
Ohio
Yeah.
State game, Notre Dame is 16 of 59 on third down, which is 27%. That is literally Iowa levels of offense, who is at 27% for the season, which is 131st nationally out of 133 teams. At one point in the game, Notre Dame had run on 13 of 15 first downs, and they used play action twice, a total of 2 times in this entire game. On 36 dropbacks, they used play action 2 times.
Yeah.
After running the ball fairly successfully the first half,
They
they
did.
still settled for 2 play action calls. I could go on, but the point is their offense is broken. Alex Grinch has now been fired by USC, and the next coordinator that needs to be fired is Jared Parker, Notre Dame's offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna
Clemson, by
say
the way, give some props to Clemson. Their defense
yes,
played really well.
they did.
They ran the ball shockingly well. I was shocked at how Notre Dame could not stop the run. Like
Yeah.
Notre Dame is supposed to have a really good defense, and Phil Maffa just kind of ran all over them. I don't have the numbers right in front of me. It was like 180 rushing yards or something, but from him with Will Shipley out. By the way, it's not like
Right.
it's not like it was a thunder and lightning approach. It was just Phil Maffa bashing Notre Dame over the head, and Clemson's offensive line that is not good was beating Notre Dame's good defensive line at the line of scrimmage somehow. So I don't know what's going on. It feels like there's some deep internal issues going on at Notre Dame. And if you're a Clemson fan, you're just happy that we're not saying that sentence about you
Fair
again.
enough.
So, like, props to Clemson. That makes it doesn't make it a good season, but it at least, you at least find solace in some of those wins late in the year, even after your goals are gone.
Dude, these wins matter late in the year.
Yes.
If your year is kind of over and you're out of it, you're not going to be making the playoff. You're not where you thought you would be. Late in the year, it is important to have big wins to feel good going into
Yes.
the offseason. It's important to find something. We're not saying you have to have it fixed. No one's expecting you to be perfect, but it's important to have a clear direction and a path into the offseason. And Clemson has a chance to do that now. They're 5-4, so they're above 500. They will go bowling probably now, as it was kind of up in the air there for a little bit, right? That was a concern. We didn't know if they were going to go bowling or not.
The winner of the Clemson Georgia Tech game is bowl eligible.
Well, I didn't want to go there just yet, but yes, Clemson will probably go bowling now. They were a physical football team. I think you will find them get back to some of the core things that they do well. Clemson's going to find something here in the last little bit of this season. I think they have to. I don't really think they had a choice. We can just go ahead and admit it though. Tyler from Spartanburg, he was a plant, right?
Yeah,
Dabo clearly had that set up. Like, there's no way that was legit. Dabo, and did you catch his presser at the end of the game? Like, if Clemson's a stock, you better buy all you freaking can buy right now. And that, which I actually kind of liked it. I thought it was entertaining. Whatever, it was cool. I think they're having to go back to the basics a little bit and find some energy. And you know what? Like, not everyone's Alabama. Not everyone can just stay at that level for forever. There's a wave. You ride the ups and downs, and I think Clemson will be better next year for it. I think it's important that Garrett Riley gets some. He needs to have the brakes taken off of his offense, in my opinion.
Yes.
And if Cade Klubnik is not the quarterback to do it, then we need to find someone in the offseason. Like, that's just kind of all there is to it.
Might be Chris Vezina. They got a 5-star freshman.
Yeah, and I was going to say there's also going to be some guys in the portal too that are going to be pretty good. Michael Pratt, from Tulane, looks like he'll be back for another year, and that would fit perfectly into this offense if he leaves Tulane.
I will totally respect him if he decides to stay at Tulane, but that guy's going to have offers like crazy.
Yeah, and Clemson doesn't take transfers. So if Clemson starts taking transfers this offseason, then there will be a lot of positive momentum. Either way, good win for them. Much needed. Very much needed.
All right. Even more shocking than that upset was this upset. Indiana beats Wisconsin 20-14. I got no explanation for it. I don't know that we have to spend a whole lot of time on it, other than Wisconsin they didn't control their own destiny in the Big Ten West with the loss to Iowa, but they were in decent contention. And that's bad. That's a bad look. Arkansas beats Florida in overtime, 39-36. Like you were saying, wins like this late in the season in a season where everything has gone poorly, they actually do matter. So good for Arkansas to get that game. Another weird upset in the Big Ten. Crappy Big Ten East teams are apparently still better than the Big Ten West. Michigan State beats Nebraska 20-17. My only takeaway from those two Big Ten upsets is that I'm looking forward to the Big Ten West no longer being a thing. And I think the Big Ten is too, because they still haven't won a Big Ten title game. And you could probably keep the same format in the Big Ten for the next 20 years, and they might not win a Big Ten title game. The Big Ten West is that bad. Ohio State beat Rutgers 35-16. Any thoughts on that one? Rutgers, they were right there at halftime. Then Ohio State finally figured it out a little bit.
I had Ohio State in this game, and we covered. I got to push. I had it at 19 points. Yeah, I got to push, even though I had no business at all not losing money in this game. Ohio State's offense is it's just kind of and their defense is really good. So I don't feel much different about Ohio State. I don't think Ohio State's the best team in the country. Can we just pause just for a minute and talk about CFP rankings, because we're going to have another batch of them tomorrow night. Ohio State is not better than Michigan, and they are not better than Georgia right now. And we're just pretending. We're pretending that they are better somehow. And I get the whole resume versus actual, what Vegas, your power rating. I get the resume versus power rating argument. I understand that Ohio State has good wins, but Notre Dame lost this weekend. Your wins aren't that much better than anyone else's. You don't have as good of a win as Washington does. They're also undefeated. So I just kind of spare me with all of that. Really do. I think Michigan or Georgia should be one. Personally, I think Georgia should be, but I'm biased. I have no problem if Michigan is. I have a little bit of a problem if Ohio State is one.
I will zag on you halfways. I don't think there's any way you can have Michigan number one right now. Their schedule to this
Why?
point.
Why not?
What's their best win?
Okay, probably Rutgers. And you know how much they beat them by? So much more than Ohio State did.
That matters, but also it's Rutgers.
Ohio State struggled with them. They were trailing at halftime.
You're right. You're right. Ohio State has also beaten Penn State and Notre Dame and Wisconsin, yeah, whatever. My point is, how do I say it? I am totally okay with the committee not validating a school's decision to schedule crap Central in the non-con. If Georgia, they now have that win against Missouri, and their schedule is good from here on out. Georgia can absolutely pass Ohio State because I think we all would probably agree Georgia's better than Ohio State.
Right.
And they actually have a decent win now. I would be perfectly fine with that. I would probably myself rank Georgia number one going forward. And Michigan plays Penn State this week. So maybe after they crap all over Penn State,
yes,
then maybe I would swap Michigan over Ohio State. But I have zero issue with rewarding a team for actually playing good opponents at this point of the season. It'll come out in the wash by the end of the month. But at this point, I absolutely have Ohio State over Michigan just based on who they've beat.
Michigan's going to be favored. Like I don't know
what
else
I don't
to
disagree
tell
with you.
Michigan's going to be favored, and they'd be favored at a neutral site. It's not just because that game's at the Big House. So, yeah, no, I understand the point. I just think it's a bad point. You don't get points for. Well, you do. It's some of both. Like it's a balance. You can't say
of course it's a balance.
It's only what Vegas says. I'm not making that argument that it's only what Vegas says because the fact of the matter is that it does actually matter. The games on the field do matter. And yeah, if you lose a game, then you should drop. And Vegas doesn't always have you dropping, very much. Like they kind of keep you the same, right? Like they thought you were there the whole time. So the wins and losses do matter. Absolutely. I don't appreciate. It just feels like we're acting. Yeah, it really does. We act like Ohio State's. We rank them number one and like, yay. And everyone's, well, if they play Georgia, well, no, they're not as good as Georgia. So then why are they one? I guess it bothers me because if you're going to be number one, being number one's a big deal. It is a big deal.
Yeah.
Being number one in the rankings is really good for your recruiting. It's really good just for your momentum of your program. Like it's a positive thing. And like there's a whole TV show now on Tuesday nights, that tells everyone about it. And yeah, I don't know. Ohio State just shouldn't be there, in my opinion. They're not as good as Michigan, so I have a problem with it, I guess. But
if I've been on the opposite side of this where I've pointed out like your margin of victory absolutely matters. And I agree with you. Like it does need to be a balance of who you played and how you played, of course.
Right.
I just think I have zero issue with the committee not rewarding a team who has played absolutely nobody through 9 games. So
I guess I would argue that Penn State's not very good in top 15 games, like when Ohio State played them. And Notre Dame they're not as good as what we thought they were either. So True. If we're looking at Ohio State's good wins, they have Ohio State and Michigan have 2 opponents in common, and Michigan beat both of them by more than Ohio State did. So those are our only 2 reference points, really. We only got the 2 of them, right?
It comes out in the wash at the end of the season because obviously they play each other, but also even if they weren't playing each other, by the end of the year, everyone has played somebody, at least if you're in a Power 5 conference. So by the end of the season, it's not as big of a deal. Like, and by the end of the season, I do value how you played maybe more. But at this point of the season, man, you haven't played anybody. So
that's fair. Yeah. No, fair enough. But like we know Michigan's better. And I think a little bit does matter too, because Michigan beat them like a drum last year at their place. And people want to say that doesn't really carry over. I really do. I feel that it does. Like that momentum matters from one year to the next. I think, Michigan's a better football team. So
I would be okay with Georgia 1, Florida State 2, honestly.
Can we get any love for Washington? The best win of all.
Hey, fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on here. Ole Miss beats Texas A&M 38-35. Kind of a wild back and forth game. I wasn't able to catch all of it, but I kept checking the score and checking in on TV as much as I could. Yeah, props to Ole Miss. They are 8-1, and it's a really impressive 8-1. I don't know that I expected them to be quite this good this year, and they're legit top 10 team at this point.
I watched quite a bit of this game.
Okay.
I had a little bit of a rooting interest. I wanted Ole Miss to have one loss going into the Georgia game this
Sure.
week. Like, yeah, come on, stay in the top 10. Like,
Yep.
if that's what we're going to get judged on, like, you need to win this game, and come play us with a top 10 number next to your name.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Ole Miss is a good football team. I don't know if they're top. I don't know if they're one of the 10 best teams. But they do have some good wins. They really do. Like Ole Miss it's hard to go. Yeah, it's hard to have one loss. And there's not a whole lot of teams left, honestly, with just the one loss. So they deserve to be there. It was a good win for them at home. And then they go on the road this week. Yeah.
Yeah. Texas beats Kansas State 33-30 in overtime. They got the ball first in overtime and scored a field goal, and then Kansas State gets the ball and went for the fourth down. I personally liked it. I like going for the win there when you're the underdog.
I like going for the win. I do not like the play call.
Fair enough.
The rollout thing that everyone's doing on the sprint out, quarterback takes the snap and sprints out to one direction and it eliminates half of the field.
Yep.
Is not smart. It's not a smart play call. I don't think it works as much as people think it does. Yeah. Maybe it looks cool. I'm not sure. You're better off doing like some kind of RPO type deal, where you get the linebacker's eyes affected, in my opinion, instead of just the sprint out. Yeah, no, I don't mind at all going for the win there, especially as the underdog on the road. One play for my guys to win the game, take the game into our hands and try to win. I have no issue with that at all.
Yeah. Malik Murphy, by the way, not great in this game. Second game in a row where he wasn't very good. Kansas State does have a pretty solid defense, so that's maybe just something to keep an eye on going forward. I don't know when Ewers is supposed to be back, but I have a feeling there might be a few people looking for Arch Manning.
Please, that would just be excellent. I would be dialed into that. Yes. Okay. So if Ewers leaves, let's say Ewers leaves in the offseason, which he's draft eligible. He probably won't, but he could. So Murphy has struggled a bit the last 2 weeks, especially in the second half of this of the Kansas State game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think Arch is impressed in practice. I've been watching some of the Texas practice notes. Again, I spend a ton of time on message boards, and Texas alums are feeling good about Arch. From guys that have been there to practice and seen him, think that he has been excellent. I'm ready for Arch. Like, that's what I'm ready for Arch. Let's go.
All right. Utah beats Arizona State 55-3. Impressive, just because that was a little bit of an upset watch. Moving on down through the day. Let's see. Well, let's get to your game. Georgia beats Mizzou 30-21. We kind of thought it might be a little bit of a bigger win, but Mizzou really hung tough. They have a good offense. They have a good team in general. I just continue to be impressed by Kirby Moore, their offensive coordinator. And of course, I say that as someone who wishes that we had a good offensive coordinator. So Kirby Moore probably getting a better job offer this offseason, just saying. But yeah, Mizzou hung in there tough, but obviously the more talented team kind of came through ultimately in this matchup.
Missouri is very physical. I think that's what we have noticed, both really from this game, but also a year ago when Missouri played Georgia all the way to the wire. That was the closest I guess Missouri and Ohio State were the only teams that kept it close with Georgia last season. It's not a fluke at this point. That's back-to-back years where this time Missouri goes on the road to Georgia and plays like the yards per rush. Missouri had more total rushing yards and more yards per rush. Like, that just doesn't happen almost ever when you play Georgia. So to go into Athens and outrush Georgia, I thought was extremely impressive. Mm-hmm. It was a very close game. It came down to turnovers. Like, there were some turnovers and there were some big negative plays on special teams for Missouri that kind of just caught my eye a little bit. There was one time where they fielded the ball on a kickoff and they weren't really sure. I think he had 1 foot out of the end zone and he didn't call fair catch. And so he had to run it out. And because he had 1 foot out of the end zone, he didn't have to do that. He could have just called fair catch and just taken it and gotten the ball at 25.
Right.
But anyway, it happened and they get pinned inside their own 5. And that's just such a, like, in a tight game, little things like that really matter. And I don't know if you saw our big defensive tackle, pick a pass off and attempt to run into the end zone.
Yes.
I think Kirby Smart said after the game that it looked like he had a piano strapped on his back or something like that. He was not moving very fast, but man, he was trying. So good win for Georgia. I'm not one of those who is going to be negative about this. Georgia didn't cover. Georgia, they're supposed to be this great, two-time defending champion team. You can't beat Missouri. Missouri's a good football team. They were ranked highly. Mm-hmm. You got their best shot, and you won by 2 scores. And you didn't play your best, and you still won by 2 scores. So this was a good win. Yeah, there needs to be some more positivity, I think, from Georgia fans there. I'm not one of those that's being negative this week. Missouri's a good football team, and you beat them again. So, yeah, on to Ole Miss.
Louisville beats Virginia Tech 34-3. Penn State beats Maryland 51-15. Pretty solid wins there by both of them. Florida State beats Pitt 24-7.
Yeah.
Not incredibly impressive there, but hey, they're 9-0. What? Any thoughts, Ashton?
I watched a bit of it. I mean, they were down right to Pitt, and I was like, oh, here we go. This is going to be one of those classic Pittsburgh games. Pitt's just not very good, man. Pitt is just they're kind of a trash football team. Florida State was missing the receivers. I think Keon Coleman didn't play at all, or Johnny Wilson.
Yep.
So, yeah, I don't put a whole lot into it. Get through it. Honestly, that's a game that's just a trap game, just a classic trap game for Florida State. They got through it. Good for them.
Yep. Okay, a couple of Big Ten West matchups. Illinois beats Minnesota 27-26. Iowa beats Northwestern 10-7 at Wrigley Field, which is the 7th highest scoring game at Wrigley Field this year, behind 6 Cubs games.
Well, oh man,
we got to move on.
There was a passing touchdown in that game. Yeah,
yes,
Iowa threw a touchdown. It's crazy.
Yeah. All right, the final bedlam lived up to the name. Oklahoma State upsets Oklahoma 27-24. This was a fun game, I thought.
Yes.
Both offenses just going high speed like the whole first half, going back and forth. And Alan Bowman was really impressive this game.
He was.
334 yards. Their running back, of course, Ollie Gordon, who's picked up a lot of Heisman steam lately. 137 yards, 2 touchdowns for him. And Oklahoma, they weren't bad in this game. Their offense especially was pretty good, I thought, which is kind of weird to say. It felt like both offenses played really well, and then the final score was just 27-24, which to me just says it was a great game. It's not like it got – sometimes Bedlam ends up in the 40s. Right. This wasn't that, but to me it felt like a very well-played game by 2 pretty good teams.
The total yardage was almost identical. There was a lot of things that were very, very close to the same. When the only exception was Oklahoma had 3 turnovers. Oklahoma State only had 1.
They'll do it.
Yeah, and especially in where margins are this small. Can we just give some props to Oklahoma State?
Yes.
This was a trash football team after 3 weeks. They were not very good. They lost to South Alabama 33-7. They then lost to Iowa State the next week. They were 2-2 at that point. That was 4 games in. They were 2-2. They have since reeled off wins over Kansas State, Kansas, and Oklahoma. Good football teams.
Yes.
Oklahoma State is currently on track to go to the Big 12 championship. We were wrong. I absolutely wrote them off after that bloodbath that South Alabama gave them. So good for them. This is a big win. Oklahoma now falls to 7-2. Yeah, huge. Good for the just the players. I know there's a lot of negativity around all off season too for Oklahoma State. So props to them.
Absolutely. Oregon crushes Cal 63-19. They continue rolling along towards the Pac-12 championship game, I would assume. West Virginia beats BYU 37-7. Kansas beats Iowa State 28-21. Michigan beats Purdue 41-13. Kentucky beats Mississippi State 24-3. Into the evening, Washington beats USC 52-42. We thought there was a bit of a chance of USC playing spoiler here, and they hung for a while.
Yeah.
Just a very high scoring game. What thoughts do you have on this game other than just kind of not totally off of what we expected as far as just two offenses going crazy.
If you want to feel good about your offense and your offensive play caller and your quarterback, all you have to do is play USC.
Yes.
Like they make anyone look good. They made Notre Dame look like they were just invincible for a while, and that offense has struggled kind of ever since. So, I mean, they do this to everyone. Alex Grinch is now out. Can we please talk about that? Okay, yes. I don't want this to be you and me dancing on his grave, but we have called for the guy's job for 3 years now, and he's finally gone. The quarterback play that Lincoln Riley has had that has been ruined by Alex Grinch and that the bad defenses is incredible. Heisman Trophy candidates and Heisman Trophy winners, and their seasons are wiped out because they can't stop anyone. This is no different. This USC defense is statistically worse than they were a year ago, which they were not good a year ago. And remember, they brought in these transfers, and Bear Alexander transfers in from Georgia and tells everyone like USC is going to be, they're just as physical as Georgia, if not more so. And like push comes to shove and they're worse, right? So I don't have a whole lot to say. We're just going to leave it there. It is what it is. The only thing I have to say about it, and then I'll stop, is what did Lincoln Riley see through 10 games this year that he didn't see the 4 previous years? Because it's the same thing. Nothing's different. If you didn't like it last year or the year before when you brought him from Oklahoma to USC, you didn't have to do that. You did that. Like what were you missing? The defense has always been the problem.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that. Theoretically, he did a pretty good job way back in the day with Mike Leach at Washington State. So I think the idea was he's used to being the defensive coordinator on a team that plays, kind of the air raid style. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I think there's so many defensive coordinators that are not used to playing with the air raid style that would do a much better job. Name almost any Big Ten West defensive coordinator. What if they steal Phil Parker? Or
hey, is it Jim Leonard that's at Illinois right now? He's excellent. A name I was going to bring up is Will Muschamp, Georgia's co-defensive coordinator. Yeah, another guy out there that you could probably get. It was the rush yardage that Washington put up. Like, of course, Penix is going to come in and do his thing and throw for a lot of yards. They've got good receivers. That is what it is. Dylan Johnson ran for 250 and 4 touchdowns on this defense. Washington doesn't really run the football that much, but they do against USC, I guess.
Apparently. By the way, kind of look, you remember a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago now, where we had a whole bunch of major programs making coaching hires.
Yes.
Lincoln Riley.
Yes.
Brian Kelly, Marcus Freeman. All 3 of those guys are now at 3 lost teams. In their second season, and I don't know, like it just feels like all 3 maybe need to make some changes. But yeah, anyway, speaking of Brian Kelly, Alabama beats LSU 42-28. Alabama is just really quietly rounding into something. Like it's an imperfect team, but they are something. Like they have a really good defense. Jalen Milroe looks more and more comfortable than he did at the beginning of the season, at least, which maybe that's LSU's defense. I don't know. But I was actually pretty impressed with Alabama.
We might forget sometimes that Alabama has the most talented roster in all of college football.
Right.
Georgia's good and Ohio State is good, but Alabama has more 5 stars than anyone. So, they're good. Alabama, spoiler alert, they're going to be a tough out from here on. They really are. Jalen Milroe, he threw. It was efficient. How about that? We'll just say that it wasn't just a dynamic game from him throwing. It was definitely dynamic for him running the football. He runs for 4 touchdowns and $155. He has gotten better. Like, we'll just go ahead and say that. The South Florida game was a long time ago. He has drastically improved since then. And the Texas game before that, he is a better quarterback now than what he was then. He has more reps. There's more rhythm. I think Alabama's receivers have improved a bit as well. I think there's just more chemistry. They're running the ball better, more push up front. And Alabama's defense, while not fantastic, they've got some good pass rushers. They get after you.
Yes.
They've got a couple of them. You saw that Jaden Daniels took a couple of
Ooh.
nasty hits, just like numerous, and which, by the way, is not new. He
No.
gets laid out. He gets laid out on the regular.
Yes.
But yeah, he gets knocked out of this game, and as soon as he went out, you kind of knew that like this is over. Like they're not coming back.
And weirdly, I at least maybe you were too, but I know I was a little hard on him beginning of the year. A couple of games in, I was kind of saying it doesn't feel like he's taken a step from last year. Like he kind of is who he is. And to be fair to him, I feel like he actually has improved a lot over the last couple months. I think he's a really good quarterback now. They just can't keep up on defense. Their defense is just not what we're used to seeing from LSU defenses. So I don't know. Maybe there's a change there or something. They at least need to figure out the defensive back situation because it's not great.
I was surprised with how much they got run on in this game. Yeah, LSU kind of got like just kind of bowled over up front. They didn't give up a ton of passing yards. I mean they didn't lock down Alabama by any means, but they definitely got gouged on the Jalen Milroe rollouts and scrambles. Like how are we not spying that guy is wild.
Right. NC State upsets Miami 20-6. I don't have a whole lot of thoughts. Do you, Ashton?
No, none at all.
Right.
It's Miami. How would we know what's going to happen to those guys?
Exactly. Stanford upsets Washington State 10-7. Good for Stanford. They are, as a Notre Dame fan who has to go to Stanford the last game of the season, I'm not 100% confident that Notre Dame will win that game. So we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Oregon State beats Colorado 26-19.
Yeah.
Fresno State beats Boise State 37-30, and Arizona beats UCLA 27-10. Any thoughts on any of those games?
Okay, so the Pac-12 After Dark games are just fantastic. I watched both Colorado and Oregon State, also the UCLA Arizona game.
Mm-hmm.
Arizona's a good football team. Arizona's darn good. They're going bowling this year. They're 6-3. I've watched a lot of them. As I said, I really enjoy Pac-12 After Dark, that late window. That's fantastic. Good for them. They did not have a ton of hype coming into this, and they have definitely found something. They've got a lot of good momentum right now.
Yeah.
Colorado is kind of the opposite. They lost to Oregon State. That's kind of a team that they're gonna limp to the finish line here. They have some more losses left there for Colorado. They can't pass protect, and they got rid of their offensive coordinator and kind of
John Lewis, yeah.
And we thought he was excellent, right? Like we thought that guy's in line for a head coaching job somewhere, and he was before. Like this dude's fantastic. For whatever reason, we bench him, and Colorado just does not score any points. That's just kind of what happened.
That feels like a bad move to me. Obviously, I'm not in the program, but yeah, we'll see.